He's got to work on his perimeter shot. But you know what? Somebody said something to me the other day that I got to give props where it's due. We know the man's a walking triple-double. We know he's box office. We know he's a superstar in this league. He's also a high-character guy. And we got to give him credit where credit is due. Don't get in any trouble. Don't get in any nonsense. Doesn't act up. The brother goes out there and goes all out 100% of the time, all the time. I could be critical of him as I have been in the past, but I'm talking about his jump shot, okay? Or I'm talking about him settling for being in a situation like being in Washington. But that wasn't his fault. Upon further research, you just wanted the hell out of Houston. You can't help where they traded you. You go to D.C. for a year. Then you wanted out and you land back home because you're from L.A. And when you look at the players that he played with, everybody he's played with, it ain't like they were worse with him now. They didn't look worse with him. So I got to be respectful and be honest about Russell Westbrook and give him a lot more love than criticism. And I'm doing that right now. That's a big-time move. He's going to get Carmelo open shots. He's going to get LeBron open shots. He's going to get Anthony Davis open shots. More importantly, the Lakers playing at a slower pace. He's going to dictate a better pace, a faster pace, especially whenever LeBron or AD is out of the game. One of them, if not both of them. This is a big-time pickup for the Los Angeles Lakers. They're in title contention because of this now. I don't know why we got this video of him with the Wizards uniform on. I guess that's because the last time we seen him in the uniform. But he'll be wearing Lakers this year, and I'm looking forward to it. It ain't the #1 move this offseason. The last 2 seasons, the Golden State Warriors have not had the services of Klay Thompson. And if I'm Steph Curry, who went to 5 consecutive NBA finals, who won 3 championships in that period of time, and I had to suffer what I had to suffer through the last 2 years, the only person hungrier than me, or just as hungry as me, might be Draymond Green. That's about it. They can't wait for Klay to come back. Klay can't wait to come back. And Klay, one of the top 5 shooters in basketball history, and a Hall of Famer already, the opportunity that Steph is looking at for them to reunite, with everybody talking about the Lakers and the Clippers and Phoenix and all of this other stuff, Lord have mercy. Look out for the Golden State Warriors. They are coming.
Steph Curry, I'm going to need a lower third for him pretty soon, the way you have it for LeBron, Stephen A., because I'm accused of being a lower third. I'm going to need one for Steph when I talk about him, the way you need one for LeBron. Great family man, philanthropist, et cetera, et cetera. Because I'm accused of being a Steph Curry hater.
It's true.
One of my favorite players in any sport ever to watch, a miraculous player to put your eyes on. I point out that something like in overtime, in a win-or-go-home game this season, it's not just that they lost. He scored 0 points. I just pointed that out. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. He's a great player. But I point that out.
I just think it's important, Max, that you remind people at the time you had more hair, no crew cut on the side, and you didn't have any facial hair. That's the last time. That's when that was going on with Steph Curry. I just want to let the world know that.
No. I mean this season. This season when they made the play-in game.
Oh,
right?
okay.
The reason that doesn't even occur to you because it wasn't reported. No one noticed it. But in overtime, in a win-or-go-home game, this season, he scored 0 points. And no one bats an eye. Could you imagine if that was LeBron James, who scored 0 points in overtime of a win-or-go-home game? We would be killing him. And that's because LeBron is compared to the GOAT, Michael Jordan. He is playing against a ghost for the title of greatest of all time. He's running out of time. He's getting up there in age. He has a super team around him, even though it's imperfect parts, but it's still super talented. You always bring up, if I say, hey, could Steph ever be the greatest player ever? You talk about his height, and you'd be right. He's 6'3". He's the greatest 6'3" or under player ever. But because he's 6'3", he ain't ever going to be the greatest player who ever lived. Right? He's already reached the mountaintop of what he's capable of doing in terms of his own legacy that way.
We thought that coming into last year. And look at what he did last year.
Because he's great. He was as good as he's ever been. And he's great. But he is not challenging MJ. That's what LeBron's up against. He does not have 6 championships. He does have a super team around him. No excuses. He is LeBron James. He's facing the most pressure, like we were just talking about, and he's got to be the most motivated.
I'm going to say something to you, Max Kellerman. I think you need to buckle your seatbelt for what I'm about to say, because it's really true. You're right. Steph doesn't compare to MJ. Size and height has something to do with it. His lack of defensive prowess has a lot to do with it, because he certainly was not even close to the defender that Michael Jordan did. But offensively, I can make a conversation that Steph Curry is in the conversation of MJ. We have never seen a shooter this phenomenal. Ever. Ever. And let's understand. And see, no, he didn't have the aerial assault. He didn't have the aerial arsenal that Michael Jordan had. Couldn't finish at the basket the way Michael Jordan could or whatever. Steph Curry, we usually see offensive players, Max, and with the exception of a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Wilt Chamberlain that's over 7 feet tall and dominant because of their height and size, and the skyhook, of course, we usually look at guys, and there's not a single player that we look at and we say Michael Jordan couldn't do that. We didn't see LeBron. We don't see LeBron. We didn't see Kobe, Vince Carter, or anybody else do anything that we felt Michael Jordan couldn't do offensively. Michael Jordan couldn't shoot like that.
Well, if you want to say
nobody could shoot like that.
If you want, no doubt. If you want to say foot for foot, Steph is the best offensive player ever, fine. But
no,
you know what else Michael Jordan couldn't do?
I'm not saying he's the best. I'm just saying that as an offensive talent, because of Steph Curry's marksman ability, because of his ability to just shoot with his eyes closed. We made a big deal about what Michael Jordan did at the free throw line, closing his eyes and hitting the free throw against the Kemba Mutombo and the Atlanta Hawks. We are seeing Steph Curry shoot 40-foot jump shots.
Okay, let me ask you a different way.
We can't say anything.
Is there any universe ever where Michael Jordan could play overtime of a winner-go-home game and score 0 points in any universe? It would never happen. It happened to Steph. No one bats an eye. I'm not bringing it up to hate on Steph. I'm bringing it up to say the standards are different for Steph because he's shorter than a guy like LeBron.
Let's not just point shorter. Let's point the fact that, again, because you're relatively smaller, his movement without the ball, you're required to do all of that because you ain't posting anybody up. You got to run through picks and screens. You got somebody that constantly has their hand on you. You're not 6'6", 220. You're not LeBron, 6'9", 260. I'm just saying, the point is, the physicality can get to you. I understand that. So that's why I'm saying I wouldn't say better. But when you talk about pure skill, as it pertains to whatever your skill set may be, Steph Curry is in the conversation as one of the greatest offensive players to have ever played basketball, simply because in no era have we ever seen somebody. Yeah, we've seen spot-up shooters. We've seen jump shooters. We've seen catch-and shooters, those guys. But in terms of dribbling the basketball and creating your own shot off the dribble, along with all of those things that I just mentioned,
range.
There has never, ever been a shooter and I'll go back to days, Max, downtown Freddie Brown, Dale Ellis. You understand what I'm saying? It was before Ray Allen, Allen Houston, Reggie Miller, Chris Mullin, and all of these boys. Ricky Pierce and those crew. I mean, the list goes to Andrew Toney. You remember that. I mean, the list goes on and on. We have never, ever seen help out, but really couldn't do much. And KD was putting on the show that he was putting on. But you know, as I watch these Brooklyn Nets, there's a lot of news that's been made about the big three and whether or not they'll get the extension. First of all, clearly they'll get offered the extension because if whatever Kevin Durant wants, the Brooklyn Nets are going to give him. If he wants Kyrie to stay, they're going to re-up Kyrie. He wants James Harden there, they're going to re-up. And if he don't want any of them there, which I'm certainly not saying is the case, then they wouldn't offer it to them. KD is the man. But what if they get offered the extension, Max Kellerman, and KD doesn't want it? What if KD wants to wait a year and just see how things unfold? What if KD, because he got this year coming up, and then after that he could exercise his player option to be a free agent? What if KD, Max Kellerman, decides that, you know what, I've been in New York and, Brooklyn nice, but, the Garden's just a different level. I mean, what if that happens, Max Kellerman?
I have one question.
Hey, Mac. I'm in L.A. You know, Hollywood Walk of Fame is out there, you know, Tinseltown. You know, some people say Land of Dreams. And, you know, I just came from Disney World, Max. I'm in a fantasy kind of mood. I'm just saying. I'm watching Sean Marks and the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm going to just see if KD decides indeed, because I know he's going to get offered the extension, I'm going to wait and see if he going to sign it. And if by some happenstance he doesn't sign it, maybe, just maybe, Max, seeing the city of New York act like champions just because their team got to the first round of the playoffs, maybe, just maybe, that made folks in Brooklyn, like KD, say, damn, that's all it takes for these people to be like this? I mean, the world is about branding.
I have one question.
World is about branding, right?
I have one question.
Anything's possible, Max.
Oh, I have one question.
Anything's possible.
Before I know whether to get really interested or just to laugh my head off right now.
Right.
You know, I might talk to an athlete or an agent or someone like that, and you can't say that you've spoken to them, but you have certain information.
Sure.
And so I might present it a certain way on the air.
Yes.
And frequently.
We all do that.
Frequently, and I don't talk to as many people nearly as you do.
Right.
You used to be a reporter and still talk to everybody. This is what I need to know right now.
Yeah.
Is this one of these Stephen A. things where I need to read between the lines?
No.
Or is this is just delusional Knicks fan Stephen A.?
This is just delusional Knicks fan Stephen A.
That's all it is.
That's all it is. That's all it is. I'm just saying.
You mean to tell me that Kevin Durant, after all the injuries and they flamed out in the playoffs in Brooklyn, Kevin Durant, who's starting a legacy that the Brooklyn Nets haven't had since they've been in the NBA.
Right.
The Nets had it in the ABA with Dr. J. They were actually the last team to win a championship in New York when they were on Long Island, 1976. Dr. J. But in the NBA, he is starting a rich historical tradition in Brooklyn, moving them from the margins into the mainstream with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, a revitalized Blake Griffin, Joe Harris, and by the way, Patty Mills coming off the bench. They're going to set the world on fire if they stay healthy. He's already in New York, and he's going to leave it all to just go across the river for what? Why would he do that?
Well, let me explain. Again, I'll openly acknowledge this ain't no conversation. This is just me sitting on the sidelines. This is just me sitting on the sidelines observing. And I said, you know something? Kyrie Irving got the injury. That's true. We all know he box office, man. You walk through the turnstiles to see Kyrie Irving. The brother's a showstopper. He is something special to behold. But he got his mind on other things deeper than basketball. And by the way, on a serious note, major props to him. I forgot what it was he did in Palestine or whatever, you know, in terms of getting some water and all of this other stuff. I forgot I don't have the article in front of me, but just his philanthropy and his heart is in the right place. And Kyrie Irving deserves a boatload of credit for that on a serious note.
Absolutely right.
But just speaking on the basketball front, he has his mind on various things. That ain't Kevin Durant. He just want to hoop all day, every day. James Harden, you know, he ain't in the Olympics. You know, he was in France, damn near getting himself in trouble. Probably not his fault, but nevertheless, you know, you got your mind on other things. All I'm trying to say is that if you KD and you don't leave New York, all right, and you at the Garden, all right, I mean, I'm just saying, listen, man, here's the deal, Max. If he does, everything will tell us. Now, I know you sitting there looking like that, but if we hear weeks from now and Kevin Durant gets offered an extension and he doesn't sign it, which means he completes next season in Brooklyn, and then after that, he can opt out, what we going to be talking about? We're going to say, why didn't he sign it? What's going on here? We're going to ask that question now. We're going to ask that question.
James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin over here, Emmanuel Quickly, and R.J. Barrett, nice young players over there. I want to leave this team to go to that.
Max, can you at least admit this, Max?
Yeah.
You have to admit that you saw, because even you lamented the ridiculousness, the delusional, ludicrous mentality Knicks fans had, but you saw how crazy New York was off of a first-round appearance. You didn't see, listen, man, we saw a beautiful, nice crowd enjoying an electrifying performance by KD in the postseason. When we saw the Knicks, and they weren't even worthy of it in terms of what was happening to them against